The Philadelphia Phillies offseason just got flipped on its head in a matter of hours. What in the world just happened? JT's back. Bichette's a Met. Kyle Tucker to the Dodgers. What is going on out here? This is going to be the most unhinged episode of Locked On Phillies maybe ever.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now the number one sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Wild card round is here. The NFL playoffs are here. Everything's here. And FanDuel's officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. It's actually divisional playoff mode. So maybe that'll give us something to focus on this weekend to be happy. Oh, wait, the birds are out. You might know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic, doing sports talk radio here in Philly for over 6 years. Been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for the past 4 seasons. And this is now my 5th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. So normally we have different segments built out and everything where it's like, oh, okay, we're going to talk about this first and then that next and then that after that. And that's a show. Normally, we'd be talking about the Rangers-Suarez poll about what your favorite moments are. Scrap all of that. Forget about flipping anything up. Like, I could talk for hours and hours and hours about the last few hours of the Phillies offseason. So right from Jump Street, in case you don't know the news and what has happened, last night, late last night, around midnight, you got the report that Kyle Tucker is going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Kyle Tucker, the best outfield option on the market. So he goes, and the Mets were very interested in Kyle Tucker. Dodgers swoop in. They steal Kyle Tucker, because of course they do. More on that later. And then the Phillies seem to be like right on the edge of signing Bichette. Everyone's talking about they're the overwhelming favorite. Like, it's going to happen. They're going to be the highest bidder. All of this great stuff. And then today we find out that Bichette is going to the Mets. The Mets pivoted from trying to sign Kyle Tucker and went in and stole Bichette from their division rival Phillies. And then the Phillies pivot and immediately pay JT Realmuto 3 years, $45 million to come back. It was like a bad love triangle of weird off-season deals, and all of them kind of make perfect sense, and none of them really make any sense. And we're going to try and break down all of it on today's episode. So the important thing for Phillies fans is you didn't get Bichette. JT Realmuto is back. And we're going to talk later on in the episode about why that ain't good enough anymore and why the Phillies just, they got, I don't even know if the Phillies screwed up. Like, I think they got just completely shafted by the powers that be at the Major League Baseball offseason. I don't know who's writing this stuff. I feel like this offseason is in the Truman Show, and this was the grand finale. And rather than me standing up at the edge of the water about to exit like the bubble taking a bow, whoever's controlling this Major League Baseball offseason and writing this, because you can't script better drama if you're trying to put angst and anger in the heart of Philadelphia Phillies fans than what just happened. They're taking the bow right now. My immediate reaction is this. If you're a Phillies fan today, you should be ticked off for so many reasons. One, JT Realmuto getting a 3-year, $45 million deal in a season that he's going to be 35 going into, through a season that he's going to be 38 going into, is insane. I don't think it's a ridiculous dollar amount, right? 45 for 3 is not going to like break the bank when it comes to what the Philadelphia Phillies payroll should be. That's $15 million a year. That is a pay decrease from what he was receiving these past, or at least this past season, right? So you knew that was going to happen with age. The problem is that you dangled the shiny new toy in front of us with all this Bichette talk, and now the JT Realmuto news just feels hollow. I think there's an argument that can be made, and today's not the setting for it, but that the Phillies would have taken a bigger drop off without JT than they would have gained with Bo Bichette because of the nature of what the catcher position would have been, right? Okay. That argument can be made, but this is not the place for that right now. Because ultimately what just happened over the course of hours is you went from they're not running it back. We're getting this new star player, 27 years old, Bo Bichette, all-star caliber guy, just played in the World Series this past year for the Toronto Blue Jays, can reshape the way we look at the infield. And then they just said, no, it's like a Scooby-Doo mystery where you pull off the mask of Bo Bichette and it's JT Realmuto underneath. Oh, same guy? We're doing this again? That's what bothers me most about the JT Realmuto deal, and what it bothers Phillies fans the most about the JT Realmuto deal is he's not Bo Bichette. And he's also 35. That is 8 years older than what Bo Bichette, well, I guess JT's still 34. He turns 35 in March, but 8 years older than what Bo Bichette's going to be this year. It's not exactly building for the future or a sustainable long-term contract. So these are just my thoughts off the top of my head. And why I say the Phillies kind of got shafted, I don't even know that I can be mad at the Phillies for this, because they were the easily most realistic contract to be offered to Bo Bichette. Like the Phillies were, and they went through their due diligence. I didn't believe it was real. And then clearly over the past week or so, the reports growing that their interest in Bo Bichette was very real. And the Phillies, according to Bob Nightingale, had agreed with Bo Bichette's request for a 7-year, $200 million deal. That's a sizable contract. I would have been worried about another 7-year contract that the Phillies are signing, like a long-term deal that locks them up into the guys that they have. And then the Mets swoop in and give them 3 years, $126 million. So just if you math challenge people out there don't know, 200 over 7 is about $28.5 million a year. 126 over 3 is $42 million a year. That's not realistic at all. For the record, neither is the Kyle Tucker $60 million a year. This was the Dodgers stole the Mets girl, or free agent outfielder in this case with Kyle Tucker. And then the Mets, out of spite, and Steve Cohen, who's probably ticked off that he got shown up because he was tweeting yesterday some crazy stuff. Steve Cohen, owner of the Mets, was tweeting like, oh, we're just waiting on a decision, basically. And then Kyle Tucker goes to the Dodgers, and his whole fan base hates him, talking about Steve Cohen. And he was just like, I need to do something. What will somehow calm down this fan base? Let me offer a ridiculous amount of money to the person who will hurt my division rival the most. And he goes and he just swoops in and he just steals Bo Bichette out from the Phillies. Like, I don't think you could have predicted that happening. And I don't know what the Phillies counter would have been. Like, I don't think that's a good contract for Bo Bichette. 3 years, $126 million. That's an overpay. I think the Kyle Tucker thing's an overpay, but at least the Dodgers could say, hey, we're going to win. So the Mets, I don't even think they made a smart deal, but they screwed the Phillies over. So it's like, we got hurt, so we're going to hurt you, and then you're going to go back to JT Realmuto, and that's where we're going to wind up on this whole thing. So that's essentially the inner workings of how this all happened. And I don't know where the Phillies were at dollar amount with JT Realmuto before this. I know that per reports, they had already offered him a 3-year deal. I imagine the second Bo Bichette signs with the Mets, Dave Dombrowski slams his fist down on the table, goes, okay, get JT on the line. What do we have to do to get this deal done right now? And they get the deal done right there. And JT had all the leverage, so I imagine JT's pretty happy because he got everything he wanted with the Philadelphia Phillies after being stubborn all offseason, which that should annoy Phillies fans. But at the same time, I don't even know that I could be overly mad at JT because the Phillies would have never been in on the Bo Bichette sweepstakes if JT hadn't been so stubborn with his contract. That's the double-edged sword of this all. I just showed you the dominoes one way. Look at the dominoes the other way. If JT is not stubborn, the Phillies don't end up overly interested in Bo Bichette to the point where they're the overwhelming favorite on a guy that a lot of Phillies fans would have rather had here. The Phillies got forced by JT Realmuto being kind of annoying through these contract talks, in my opinion, into almost making the better move, deciding that they were going to make the better move, and then the better move gets stolen out from under them. So I imagine Dave Dombrowski's losing his mind right now. Phillies fans are losing their mind right now. And I could make the strong argument that you shouldn't be mad at the Phillies organization for this. It was just a wild set of like a chain reaction things that happened in Major League Baseball very quickly that nobody predicted that led to the Phillies being the most on the outside looking in. If you look at how this works as far as who won the day, the Dodgers are one with Kyle Tucker. We'll talk about that later. The Mets are two with Bo Bichette, even though they overpaid him. They got the second best player out of the guys that we're talking about that were available, and they got to steal him out from the Phillies, who were going to sign him if the Mets did not. So you directly took a great player from your division rival. And third place is the Philadelphia Phillies. The Philadelphia Phillies just came in third in a what looked to be yesterday a one-man competition. Only in Philadelphia, folks. Only in the Major League Baseball offseason. I don't. So if you're mad about the Phillies not getting Bichette, I understand. If you're going to hate him while he's a Met for choosing the Mets over Philadelphia, I understand. If you're mad at JT Realmuto for dragging this all along and making all of this nightmare scenario, whatever you want to call it, possible, I understand. If you're mad at the Dodgers for just continuing to throw money and signing Kyle Tucker and messing up the ecosystem of Major League Baseball by putting a ridiculous deal out on the table for Kyle Tucker, I understand. There's a lot of stuff to be mad about if you're a Philadelphia Phillies fan today. And the organization's partially at fault, and JT's partially at fault, and Bo Bichette's partially at fault, and the Dodgers are partially at fault, and we're partially at fault if you believed that they were going to get Bo Bichette, but maybe you should have. This is one of the wildest offseason 24 hours in Phillies history, and that's essentially how we got here. Now, I could spend, like I told you, hours and hours and hours and hours talking about what in the world happened and how we got here and what our reaction should be to it. But we are where we are, right? And part of this is looking at objectively, what are the Phillies like now that these deals are done? It's not going to be like, oh, Bo Bichette fails a physical in New York and he's now available again, and JT Realmuto fails his, and Kyle Tucker says, never mind, I don't want $60 million a year to play baseball. Like, we are where we are. So what in the world does that leave us with? How do we evaluate the NL East, the National League, the Phillies themselves? We'll talk about that as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about FanDuel first, though, because a great opportunity for you to make some money this weekend betting on the NFL divisional round playoffs. FanDuel's officially in playoff mode every game day during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel's giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you're going to see a pack loaded with multiple different profit boosts. You can apply them to the bets you like the most. It's not going to make you say, oh, you got to take this bet if you want to take advantage of the profit boost. No, you can make the bets you want based on the postseason right now in the NFL. And you could just apply those wherever you like. So you have flexibility, but they're just like, hey, why don't you take those bets and make them worth even more money if they win? It's a beautiful thing FanDuel's doing. And the reason they're doing it is because they want you to get a chance to have the fun of betting on playoff football. If your team is out, the Birds are gone right now. They got eliminated. The only way that you can really have fun watching the postseason is by making these bets. Make it intriguing for yourself. It won't be the same as a Birds game day, but you can make some money on it too. And there are a lot of fun bets on some great games this weekend. You can look at over-unders, props, parlays, the spread, money line straight up. A lot of great ways to win on FanDuel. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs are rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack today. Every day is great. NFL is a great thing to bet on. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. let's talk about our everydayer club real quick before we get back to what in the world's going on in Major League Baseball. But I appreciate you for checking out Locked On Phillies. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of people checking us out for the first time today with all the news going on. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So make sure, hey, you're following all your teams via the Locked On Podcast Network. And if you haven't already, go check out our brand new Everydayer Club. Adding yourself to the Everydayer Club will give you access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Phillies, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. It'll get you an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which is basically like this online community where you can chat with hosts and other fans. I imagine it's war in there right now. As soon as I'm done recording this, I'm going to be hopping on the Discord server. You get a chance to do that as well when you join the Everydayer Club. There's a lot of great opportunities. So when big stories like this break, you can jump in there. And not only can you get ad-free versions of Locked On Phillies, but you can interact with a bunch of other listeners, the hosts, everything in that great setting. So go to lockedonphillies.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more and check out our Everydayers Club. So we are where we are. Let's do a granular evaluation of like where everything stands, starting at the base level. We'll start with the Philadelphia Phillies. JT Realmuto back, 3-year, $45 million deal. People are going to lose their minds about this because they wanted Bichette, and all of a sudden they're getting more of the same. It's like if you had, a poorly cooked steak every night for dinner. It's all you ever ate. It's all you were ever able to cook. And then one day, after years and years of the same bland, stale dinner that you're so tired of, someone goes, hey, we're going out to a nice restaurant tonight. Italian food. You're going to get some good pasta. It's going to taste amazing. I can't wait for you to taste this fettuccine Alfredo. It's like nothing you've had in years. You're as excited for a meal as you've ever been. And then 7 p.m. rolls around, and guess what's on your plate? It's the same old steak. You say, oh, sorry. the Mets bought the Olive Garden, so you can't go get fettuccine Alfredo tonight. That's what it is, right? JT Realmuto, in a vacuum, I think is still a valuable player in certain ways, right? His offensive profile hasn't looked great over the past couple of seasons. I'm not here to tell you he's going to be a plus offensive bat. He's not going to be. I don't believe that. But I saw Carlos Ruiz hit like 080 with this team and be a beloved figure because he was a great manager of the pitching staff and he was a great defensive catcher. And that just worked for that version of the Phillies. Now, I don't think this version of the Phillies is the 2008 core. Obviously, they don't have the rings to show for it. So going from a guy like Bichette, who can tear the cover off the ball in the box, to getting JT Realmuto back, whose assets to the team are a little bit more nuanced, isn't going to excite Phillies fans. And I don't think it should, because the other baseline level of it is he's also old. What happens when JT gets hurt, breaks down? 3 more years of an aging catcher and a guy that was already looking like he was well on the downslope last year. Things could be worse, I guess, for the Philadelphia Phillies, but I'm not excited about this move. And I was out on the Bichette thing. Like, I did not believe the Bichette thing was going to happen. If you've watched the podcast over the past week, I've been the one telling you, calm down. Do not put all of your eggs into the Bichette basket, because there are a lot of people interested in this guy. And while the Phillies might be the favorite, things change quickly. I didn't know they would change this quickly. I'm not saying I knew this was going to happen. I'm just saying, like, when you put all your eggs in one basket, you're going to crack some eggs if things go wrong. I don't know if that's how that expression goes. I'm on a roll. Stay with me. Anyway, so the JT portion of this, just from the Phillies perspective, is like, yeah, okay, cool. I guess we'll take him. But I don't love that the Phillies gave out that length of contract. I've never really been interested in a 3-year deal for JT Realmuto, but they kind of had to. Once you lose Bichette, once you lose Kyle Tucker, it was really the only move left on the chessboard for the Philadelphia Phillies. I say Kyle Tucker. Him going to the Dodgers made the Mets go after Bichette. The Phillies were never in on Kyle Tucker. Also, you're getting a chance to fall for it again. Some places rumoring the Phillies are now interested in Cody Bellinger. Come on, folks. We're not going to fall for this again. That's not going to happen either. So don't even go down that path. But so the Phillies are stable, but not better. And better would probably not have been good enough after the Kyle Tucker move. And as good as they are, wasn't good enough last year for a lesser version of the Dodgers. So if you're saying I have no inspiration with the Phillies, I understand. NL East just got tougher. Now, do I still think the Phillies are better than the Mets? Probably, just based on pitching staff and the overall talent of the roster. Now, are we going to hang a banner for that? Well, if they win the East again, then maybe we'll throw a flag out there in center field, but that's not exactly going to be something that you hold a parade for. So Bichette going to the Mets, panic move for them. I don't think it's good for them. I just think in the short term it hurts the Phillies. So part of the reason they did it was because they panicked on losing Kyle Tucker, and I don't really know how much it changes the scope of the division. The biggest thing about the NL East is now we have a number one hated player in the National League East. And even though I'll tell you it's not his fault because the amount of money the Mets offered him, it's ridiculous compared to what the Phillies offered him. But for a guy that Philadelphia sold themselves on and then ended up signing with the biggest rival in the sport to the Philadelphia Phillies, Bo Bichette just went from potential savior to absolutely hated in the city of Philadelphia. And they're going to see each other a lot. I don't know if the players will feel that animosity, but the fan base certainly will. So, Bo, good luck the first time you come to the bank. You're not getting a warm welcome. I don't know that I blame him, but I'm also not going to blame Phillies fans. You know how it goes. You pick the Mets over us, you're hated in this city. And then the one other part of this equation that is going to take more to talk about, which I imagine a lot of other Locked On shows today are talking about, the Kyle Tucker angle to this. National League and Major League Baseball in general, we're going to devote the full final segment of the podcast to that, because what the Dodgers are doing, folks, it's never been more clear that we're heading to a lockout in 2027. And we're going to lose a lot of baseball because of the way the Dodgers have gone about stuff. And can you blame them? Because they're the ones wearing the rings when everything's all said and done. We'll talk about what the landscape of baseball looks like after a Kyle Tucker move that had everybody ripping their hair out last night as we continue today's episode. So we've talked about JT. We've talked about Bo Bichette. If you think this is the last time we're talking about it, absolutely not. Like, every episode for the next week is going to be spent trying to evaluate what in the world happened. Are the Phillies now screwed when it comes to the NL East? And there's so much more to say. We're going to look at actual numbers, and I may make the argument for, hey, JT fixes a bigger hole with this team than Bo Bichette would have. That's all a conversation for another day. This is just, you're getting the raw reaction of, like, I don't know what in the world just happened over the past couple hours. And it all got started by the Los Angeles Dodgers handing out the most ridiculous contract in the history of baseball, with a 4-year deal for Kyle Tucker that's going to break down to $60 million a year. That is a record. The luxury tax amount that they're going to be paying is higher than pretty much everyone else's salary in baseball. He's making more than 50% more than Aaron Judge now, who is a significantly better player. And there's a lot of deferred money in there because, of course, there is. And there's an opt-out after 2 years, which means after 2 years, he might just say, yeah, that was a fun 2 years. We won 2 championships. See ya. And that sets up the Dodgers perfectly for the potential salary cap start. But that's a conversation for another day. Bottom line is this. The Dodgers have gone out and done what other teams are unwilling to do, including the Phillies. The Dodgers have gone so deep into the luxury tax. They have deferred money to bring in players to create a super team, and people are losing their minds over it. Now, the fan part of me, I'll start with first. Screw the Dodgers, everything about them, and the horse they rode in on. I hate that organization. I do. I hate them for knocking the Phillies out. I hate them for doing this to the point where baseball is no longer a competitive sport. I can't remember a time, at least when the Yankees were doing it, like the 90s and early 2000s, There seemed to be some level of competition because the salaries were not as astronomical as they are currently in Major League Baseball. Sure, the Yankees outspent everybody, but there wasn't this much of a perceived gap. The Dodgers are just the team that they have built is absolutely insane. And while fan side, I'm telling you that, that is very disheartening for other baseball fans. I imagine 25 of 30 fan bases today woke up and said, well, there goes our chance. Not that we really had one anyway. The Phillies may be in those 5 fan bases, give or take, that actually does still have a legitimate chance to maybe knock that team off. But it doesn't feel like it's sitting here today. It feels like the World Series was just won by the Dodgers again in January. And that's a problem for the sport of baseball. And I'm not saying, oh, the Dodgers are cheating. No, they've mastered the system. They're continuing to take advantage of the system. They're buying championships, and they have the full right to them because that's what the system allows for. So kudos to Dodgers ownership, but you got to also understand now that there will be issues for the league, right? That's the kind of independent evaluator part of it. Is I can't get mad at the Dodgers for doing this because none of what they're doing is illegal. They're not breaking any rules. They didn't really find any loopholes. It's not like the deferred money. Oh, well, now all of a sudden they don't pay the luxury tax. They are paying more in luxury tax than half of Major League Baseball is paying in payroll. So they're eating the money. But they're just saying, who cares? We'll eat the money because we're going to make it back by being the greatest baseball team in the history of the sport. And that's just kind of where we're at right now with the way the Dodgers look. Now, could they get knocked off? Sure, anything could happen. Toronto took them to a 7th game in the World Series this past year. Now Ohtani's going to start pitching again. And Kyle Tucker replaces a hole in their lineup. And they've just gotten another level. He's been an all-star for the past 4 years, folks. And he just gets added to that Dodgers team. It's insane. Not to mention Edwin Diaz went there. They've been really cooking the Mets this offseason, the Dodgers have. But when you look at it, if you're feeling like, oh, well, baseball is over, there is no way for any team to compete with the Dodgers this season, I kind of feel the same way, and I don't blame you. But what this is going to end up leading to, rightfully or wrongfully, is going to be a major, major lockout. Because there's going to be the will to impose a salary cap. And it needs to happen. This just can't keep happening year after year after year. It's actually a sign for everyone who's saying baseball's dead. I said baseball is broken. That's different than baseball is dead. I don't like the way that the current system operates where a team like the Dodgers can just throw their weight around money-wise and do this. But it is the system, so I can't fault them for using it. You ever play wiffle ball as a kid? And you had to make a rule that you couldn't throw as hard as possible because one kid threw so much harder, no one was ever going to get a hit off of him. That's kind of it. But in this instance, the commissioner of wiffle ball in your backyard said, everyone throws as hard as you want. Is that kid just going to lob one down the middle for everyone to have fun? He would if he's a good friend. But these aren't friends. These are foes. These are organizations that are against each other. So the Dodgers are taking advantage. But ultimately, this is an unsustainable way for Major League Baseball to operate. So they're going to want to impose a salary cap. The players are going to fight tooth and nail because every player wants to be the next $60 million a year guy. That's good for business if you're the Players Association. I can get you $60 million a year. All of these guys want to make as much money as possible. Why wouldn't they? You would if you were in their shoes. So they're going to fight it. They don't want to be capped. And the owners are going to look at this and say, look at what the Dodgers are doing. And not just how that compares to a team like the Phillies. How does that compare to a team like the Rays? How would they ever compete? That's the thing. It's not an equal playing field. And in order to even it out, we're probably going to lose a whole season of baseball. And while it would be easy to say it's the Dodgers' fault we're doing this, they just happen to be the ones that implemented the strategy that gamed the system. It really is the system's issue. And the Kyle Tucker contract is just another indication of that. So who am I mad at today? Well, I'm mad at baseball for allowing this type of stuff to happen. I'm mad at the Dodgers for continuing to spend more money than every other team even comprehends. I'm mad at the Mets for, out of spite and panic, moving from Kyle Tucker to steal out the guy that could have this fan base excited in Bo Bichette. I'm mad at the Phillies for going back to JT Realmuto and giving him everything he wanted, even though he's going to be a 35-year-old catcher and doesn't seem like he's going to age well into that 3-year contract. I'm mad at JT and Bo and Kyle Tucker and everybody. I'm mad at everybody today. I think every Phillies fan should be. Things change quickly around Major League Baseball. And that's why it's really fun. Maybe not fun is the right word today, but it's an awesome opportunity to get to do this podcast and talk to you every day and react to this stuff in real time. So thank you so much for joining us. Once again, Locked On Phillies is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure that you're rating and reviewing if you're listening in podcast form. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching us on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, we just hit 6,000 subscribers. Would love it if you became 6,001. You can hit that subscribe button. It'll just get you notifications when new episodes are posted so you don't miss any big news. Like, I don't know, one of the wildest days in Major League Baseball offseason history. Yeah, you're going to want to be locked in because there's a lot of stuff to be figured out here. But thank you so much for joining us. And I will talk to you on Monday as we continue to try and figure this out as the dust and smoke clears on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.